Hey guys, welcome to another video here on the AviationPro channel. In this video I'm going to announce a new VATSIM VFR tutorial series. Now, as you know, on this channel you will find a lot of VATSIM tutorials that are mainly about flying IFR and flying airliners. But in this tutorial series I want to focus on VFR flying. So going back to the basics, flying general aviation aircraft VFR. So in this video I'll introduce you to the new series. I'll kind of explain why I'm making this tutorial series and what you can expect. And I'll give you some reasons for why you should fly VFR and VATSIM, because it's actually great fun. It's not something a lot of people do, but I think it's great to explore. So let's take a look at what we can expect in the new VATSIM VFR tutorial series. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, I've always kind of hesitated making VFR tutorials because it's not very common on VATSIM. I personally found flying VFR in Flight Simulator not very comfortable, because, you know, VFR is a lot about looking outside, but, you know, in a 2D cockpit on a 2D monitor, it's not very easy to look outside to look for landmarks. But now I've got kind of a nice setup. I got a nice good Orbach scenery of the Netherlands, and of course there are a lot of great sceneries out there for many regions in the world, so actually VFR flying has become a little bit more acceptable. And another reason for my reluctance is that, you know, there's a lot of variation in VFR flying. You know, IFR and airliner flying is kind of standardized all over the world. Of course SIDS and stars look different, but, you know, all the general principles are relatively similar. But VFR, there's quite a bit of local variation, even between airports in one single country. So as you can imagine, it's very difficult to produce one coherent video. So what I'm going to do in this series is just going to show you my perspective, which is primarily going to be a Dutch perspective. But I hope using that knowledge you'll be able to adapt to your local variations regarding VFR flying. So by giving you the Dutch perspective, you should be also able to apply that knowledge to other areas, and then it's up to your own responsibility to look up any other differences that you might find. So you might find differences in procedures, phraseology and all that stuff, but the goal of this series is really to make a coherent set of knowledge that you can use and build upon. So all videos in this series will be released in the upcoming weeks throughout June and July. So it should be able to get you ready for flying VFR. And it's really going to be a full set of videos going from the theory to practice. So it should really get you ready. The first video that we're going to start with, next video, is going to be the basics and theory of VFR. You know, exploring all topics that, you know, will get you going flying VFR, that are important to understand before you take out on your first flight. After that, we'll hit the skies by doing some simple circuit flying and giving you an introduction to phraseology. And then we're going to further explore VFR flying in the next video, in a departure tutorial, an arrival tutorial, and then finishing off this tutorial series for now with a cross-country tutorial. So flying in VFR flight from one airport to the other airport within the Netherlands. And to completely finish it off, I'm planning on participating in a VFR event on VATSIM sometime. So really, you know, using actual VATSIM air traffic controllers and really simulating that flight like a VATSIM full flight that you're used to from the AviationPro channel. So that's what you can expect. Again, every Thursday and Saturday a video is going to be released if all works out well. And so it should be great fun. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon if you want to be notified about the latest VATSIM VFR tutorial videos. Now, to kind of get you in the mood for VFR flying, especially if you're only flying airliners, let's explore some reasons as to why you should fly VFR and VATSIM. Now, the first reason is that it really takes you back to the basics of flying. You know, VFR flying is a lot about the basics, you know, just looking outside, using visual references, kind of going back to the old style of flying where flying began, you know, about 100 years ago. So really using visual references and kind of, you know, going back to the drawing board to, you know, generate your own route. You're not really handed a flight plan anymore by a nice flight planner. No, you really have to, you know, take a VFR map, you know, get your own route, make your own calculations. So it's really kind of adventurous in a way as well. It really gets you back to those basics of flying, where it really starts, especially for pilots in the real world. You know, flight training really starts with, you know, learning how to fly a general aviation aircraft, starting at the very basics. So it's very good to go back to those basics every once in a while, and flying VFR is perfect for that. And the second reason with that is that it really is good for your general flying skills, in my opinion. You know, in an airliner you kind of get used to procedures at some point, and you're not really used to hand flying and navigating on your own really anymore. So really VFR flying really, you know, make sure that you keep those flying skills up, especially, you know, using visual references and just being able to manually control and navigate an aircraft through, in this case, the virtual skies. The third reason is that your VFR flight is very free. You can make it as complicated or exciting as you want. If you're flying airliners, of course you could pick a nice destination and fly from A to B, but at some point you kind of get used to it. But VFR flying can really kind of you're more liberal to make your own decisions as to where you're going to fly and what kind of flights you're going to make. I mean, you could make a nice scenic flight across your hometown, or maybe explore some nice mountainous areas that are very beautiful. Or if you think that's too easy, you could also make it more complicated for yourself by planning a large cross-country flight where you're crossing multiple control areas around airports with a lot of traffic, and really exciting yourself, really making sure that you're paying attention as to where you're flying, and making sure that you do not mess up with any procedures. The fourth reason, what I personally really like about VFR flying, is it feels like sort of a vacation somehow. If you're simulating a flight using an airliner, it kind of feels more like a job. You really feel that duty somehow. It may sound weird as just a simmer, but you can sort of feel the duty from completing that flight from A to B successfully. But if you're flying VFR, if you're flying alone in your general aviation aircraft virtually, it really feels kind of like a vacation. You're making a little adventure. Maybe you're planning a nice route through the US, crossing and passing by multiple airports. Of course, VFR flying is really something that's often more done in the summertime, so that also adds to that holiday feeling. What I always kind of like to imagine, flying VFR from one airport via another airport, eating a burger in between, kind of feels like that $100 burger, but in this case, that burger will just cost you, the price of a regular burger, because you're not burning any fuel. So it's that idea of freedom of flight, and just passing by airports and kind of creating that vacation feeling for yourself. That's what I personally really like about VFR flying. There you go. I hope that gets you excited with flying VFR. Make sure that you stay tuned for videos coming up on this series. Again, it starts this Saturday with an extensive theory lesson covering all topics that are relevant for VFR in a concise manner as possible. Of course, the style of this channel. I really try to pass on the information in a clear and concise way, so it should be fun to watch. And make sure that you take some time to really take up on this theory, let it sink in a little bit, and then we'll continue next week, Thursday, with our first video where we're actually going to fly some simple circuits. And that's where it really starts. Circuit flying is very important, especially if you're new to VATSIM. Circuit flying is a great way to learn how to communicate with air traffic control and kind of get over those nerves of flying with air traffic control. So thanks for watching this quick introduction video here on the AviationPro channel. I hope you will enjoy the tutorials. In the meantime, make sure you check out some other videos, and make sure you stay tuned with the channel to get the latest updates. And if you'd like to support this channel in this endeavor, head over to my Patreon page, patreon.com/aviationpro. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.